The Trial of the Beast. The grand hall of the alien council stretched wider than the eyes could see. 1,000 shimmering lights floated above the chamber, casting long shadows across the marble floor carved with the emblems of many worlds. The voices of countless species echoed against the high ceilings, each voice sharp with fear and heavy with judgment. Today was not an ordinary meeting. Today was the trial of the creature that had haunted their colonies for decades, the beast that many called the Scourge of Stars. Its chains clinked against the floor as it was dragged into the chamber, the sound sharp enough to silence the crowd. The beast was taller than any alien warrior, its body covered in thick scales that glowed faintly with an unnatural fire. Its eyes shone like burning coals in the darkness. Its breath came in deep snarls that rattled the air. The council guards, armored in shining steel, forced it forward, the chains biting into its limbs. Every alien present leaned back in fear. Their voices filled the chamber with a single cry: "Death! Death to the monster!" The demand rose like a storm, echoing across the galaxy in that one moment. The council leader, a tall alien with silver skin and a crown of bone, raised his hand. Silence fell. His voice rang out cold and sharp. "This beast has slaughtered villages, destroyed fleets, and left nothing but ruin. No mercy can be given. No life can be spared. For the safety of the stars, it must be sacrificed." His words were met with thunderous agreement. Aliens of every shape and color struck their staffs against the floor, demanding the creature's end. Among the rows of diplomats sat a lone human ambassador. His seat was small compared to the giants around him, his body fragile compared to the armored warriors and massive lords, yet his eyes did not flinch as they watched the chained beast. Unlike the others, he did not spit curses or whisper prayers of fear. He studied the creature with a gaze both sharp and gentle. He saw the trembling in its muscles, not of rage but of exhaustion. He saw the way it lowered its head as if carrying a burden too heavy to bear. The whispers of the aliens rose like a tide. One spoke of how the beast had torn through their ships as if they were paper. Another recalled how its roar had driven soldiers mad. A third shouted that it was a demon. Born from the void, each story painted the creature darker than the last. The beast itself growled in answer, shaking its chains. The guards held their weapons tighter, sweat glistening under their helmets. The council roared louder, drowning out reason with fear. The human sat in silence as the voices of fear filled the air. His heart beat slow. His mind turned over the stories. He had read the reports before coming here. He had seen the drawings, the wounds, the destruction. Yet something did not fit. The beast's eyes met his for a brief moment. In that single glance he did not see madness or hunger. He saw pain. He saw something closer to a wounded child than a raging monster. The human leaned forward in his seat while the aliens laughed at his calm expression. The council leader's voice boomed again. "There is no choice. For the survival of our worlds, this beast must be put to death. To keep balance among the stars, sacrifice must be made. Let no one speak against this. Let no one question the judgment of the council." His words struck like a hammer. The chamber thundered with agreement. Yet as the echo faded, one voice rose, soft but steady. It was the human. He stood slowly, every alien eye turning toward him. Some filled with mockery, some with rage. The human's voice was calm. "You call it a monster, you call it a curse, but I see something different. I see not a demon, but a creature. In chains, I ask you, what if we are wrong? What if this beast is not only rage, but something more?" The chamber erupted with laughter and scorn. Aliens shook their heads. Some spat in disgust. One shouted, "Foolish human, do you seek to die as its next meal?" Another sneered, "Your species has always been weak. Soft hearts and blind eyes. This is why humans will never rule the stars." The words burned like fire, but the human did not step back. His gaze never left the beast, his hands clenched not with fear but with quiet resolve. The beast growled again, the sound shaking the walls, its chains rattled with the force of its struggle. The guards prepared their weapons, ready to strike if it broke free. Yet the human did not flinch. Instead, he took a single step forward, his shoes echoed against the marble floor. The chamber froze in disbelief. Every alien leaned. Closer, their hearts caught between dread and curiosity. The council leader slammed his staff against the floor. "Human, sit down. You do not know what you are doing. The beast will kill you where you stand." His voice was sharp with both anger and fear, but the human did not move. His voice answered firm. "Perhaps it will. Perhaps you are right. But if no one tries to see it differently, then we are only killing out of fear, not justice." A silence heavier than stone fell over the chamber. Even the beast stilled for a moment. Its eyes locked with the humans once more. The council chamber, filled with thousands, held its breath. The trial of the beast had begun. But perhaps it was not only the beast on trial. Perhaps it was the very soul of the council. Whispers of fear. The chamber that had fallen into silence slowly began to stir again. But this time the whispers carried more weight than before. They were not the open shouts of anger and condemnation that had filled the air earlier. They were hushed tones, the voices of creatures who carried old scars and buried memories. One alien with translucent skin leaned toward his neighbor and spoke with trembling words. "I saw it tear through our harvest fields. I saw it drag our children away in the night. No blade touched it. No wall stopped it. It is not a beast. It is a shadow of death." The words spread quickly, picked up and reshaped by the crowd until they became stories of horror that grew with each telling. Another alien, tall and insect-like, lifted her arm and revealed a long, jagged scar. "This mark," she hissed, "was given to me by its claws. My platoon of 50 strong warriors fell in moments. I was the only one left, and I survived only because I pretended to be dead beneath their bodies. Do not be deceived by silence in its eyes. It lives to kill, and it will kill again if given the chance." Her voice carried across the chamber, and the scar gleamed under. The pale light, making her words strike deeper into the hearts of those listening. The beast growled in response, a deep and rumbling sound that seemed to rise from the very stones beneath their feet. The guards tightened their grip on the chains and raised their spears. The noise of fear swelled once again. Some aliens covered their ears while others shouted for the human to sit down. The chains rattled violently as if the beast understood the words spoken against it. Its glowing eyes swept across the chamber, and wherever its gaze fell, creatures lowered their heads, overcome by primal dread, yet the human did not move. His gaze remained steady, studying not the stories but the expressions of those telling them. He could hear the trembling in their voices. He could see the way their eyes widened, not only in anger but also in remembered terror. These were not merely lies to condemn the beast. They were truths twisted by fear and scars too deep to heal. The human's thoughts whispered within him. How many of these tales were the beast's fault, and how many were wounds left by misunderstanding? He knew fear could shape memory. He knew fear could turn shadows into monsters. An old alien with wrinkled scales and a broken tusk rose slowly from his seat. His voice cracked like dry leaves. "When I was a youngling, the beast came to our village. It walked like thunder, every step shaking the earth. Our homes fell. Our families ran, and the creature roared as if the sky itself split. We prayed for the council to save us, but no one came. It was said the beast left only bones and ashes. That night, our stars felt colder than death." The chamber fell silent for a heartbeat as the old one sat again, tears glistening on his ancient face. The council leader raised his voice, using the old alien's testimony to strike harder. "Do you hear them? Do you hear the cries of the innocent? Do you see the scars carried by survivors? This beast has been weighed by time and by blood. It is not a misunderstood creature, it is a curse sent by the void itself. We cannot afford to debate mercy. We cannot risk its life for your compassion. Human, sacrifice is the only path. Sacrifice is justice. His words were sharp, and the crowd roared again, drowning the chamber in waves of rage, but the human stood his ground. His voice, though softer, reached through the storm of sound. I do not deny your scars. I do not deny the fear you have felt. But has anyone asked why it came? Has anyone tried to see if there is reason in its rage? Beasts do not burn villages without cause. Creatures do not fight unless they are threatened. What if it was hunted first? What if it was trapped or wounded? You see only what it has done, but you refuse to ask what was done to it. The chamber froze, for his words cut into the air like a knife. The aliens looked at each other. Some hissed in disgust, some laughed cruelly, but a few lowered their heads, caught in doubt. The humans' words carried something dangerous. Not because they were false, but because they held the possibility of truth. The council leader narrowed his eyes. He could feel the unease spreading. He slammed his staff again, demanding silence. The beast stirred at that moment, its eyes locked with the humans once more, and for a fleeting instant it did not look like a monster. Its head lowered slightly, its breathing slowed. The chains that held it no longer clattered with violent struggle. Instead, the sound that filled the chamber was its quiet, heavy breath. It looked almost tired, almost broken, as if the weight of the hatred in the room pressed down upon it like a mountain. But the silence did not last. One alien from the upper seats shouted, "Do not trust its tricks. This is how demons lure you. They pretend to be weak until your guard lowers. Then they strike." Another added quickly, "The human is blind. He will bring death to us all." Fear once again spread like wildfire. The whispers rose and twisted into screams. The crowd's voice became a storm of judgment, demanding the beast's death, demanding the human's silence. Yet the human did not sit. His eyes burned not with arrogance but with determination. He knew the council would never believe easily. He knew that in this chamber filled with fear, his voice was smaller than a whisper in the wind. Still he spoke again, firm and steady. You see only the shadow of what it was, not the truth of what it is. I ask only this. Do not kill it until you know for certain what it is. Do not kill out of fear. The words lingered in the air, fighting against the heavy tide of hatred. The beast, chained and broken, gave a low, mournful sound, almost like a sigh. The sound cut through the voices of rage, leaving a strange silence behind. And in that silence, for the first time, doubt began to creep into the hearts of the council. Not enough to save the creature, not yet, but enough to change the path of judgment. The whispers of fear had grown louder, but now they carried a question with them, and questions are more dangerous than screams. The human's defiance. The chamber quivered with voices that rose and fell like crashing waves. The alien crowd demanded blood, their faces twisted with fear, rage, and hatred that had burned for generations. The beast stood chained at the center, its massive body tense, its breath steaming through the cold air of the council hall. The sound of its growls rattled through the bones of every creature present. Yet, despite the storm around him, the human did not sit down. He stood tall in the midst of towering alien lords, a small figure of flesh and bone surrounded by armored giants. His presence was almost laughable to many, but the calm fire in his eyes silenced those who dared mock him. The council leader raised his staff again, his silver skin glowing faintly under the chamber lights. His voice rang out like thunder. "Human, you have spoken enough. You dare to question the council. You dare to question the cries of survivors. This creature is a blight upon the stars. It deserves no trial, no mercy, and certainly no defender. Sit down before you are cast into chains beside it." His words cut through the hall, and the guards shifted uneasily, their spears gleaming in the air, but the human did not bow. His voice carried steady and strong. "If this chamber calls itself a council of justice, then why is no one willing to test the truth? You claim the beast kills without reason. Yet, no one has stood close enough to see it. You speak only of fear, and fear blinds you. I will not sit, I will not be silent. For if I do, then I am no better than the chains that bind this creature." The words struck the chamber like sparks against dry wood, setting fire to the whispers. Some hissed with laughter, others jeered in anger, but none could ignore him now. The guards stepped forward, ready to drag the human back to his seat. Their heavy boots clanged against the marble floor. Yet before they could lay hands on him, the human moved, not backward, but forward. His steps echoed with quiet defiance. The chamber fell into a hush. As every eye widened in disbelief, he was walking toward the beast, toward the very creature that even the bravest of warriors refused to approach. The guards froze, torn between their orders and the fear that the human would meet his death within seconds. The beast snarled at the movement, its chains rattling. Violently as it reared against its bonds, the sound was enough to make half the council flinch. Many shielded their eyes, expecting the human to be torn apart in a single breath, but the human did not raise a weapon. He did not even lift his arms to defend himself. Instead, he slowed his pace, every step deliberate. His gaze locked onto the creature's burning eyes, not with challenge but with steady calm. He walked, as though he was approaching a wounded traveler, not a monster. The chamber grew so quiet that the sound of the chains scraping against stone echoed like thunder. The alien leaders leaned forward in their seats, unable to look away. Even the council leader, who had mocked the human only moments ago, now sat. With his jaw tight, his staff trembled slightly in his grip. For the first time in centuries, someone dared to approach the scourge of stars without a blade or a shield. The human stopped only a few feet away from the beast. His body seemed small, fragile, almost like a child standing before a storm. The beast growled again, its eyes narrowing, hot breath washing over him like fire. The chains rattled as its claws scraped against the floor. The crowd gasped in unison, certain that the end had come. Yet the human did not step back. He lifted his chin, his voice calm though his heart pounded. "If you mean to kill me, then do so. But I will not see you as a demon. I will see you as life, and life deserves to be understood." The beast's growl faltered, its great chest heaved, its muscles strained against the chains, but it did not strike. Its burning eyes studied the human as though weighing his words. The silence stretched long and heavy, so heavy that the council itself forgot to breathe. Every being in the chamber felt the tension coil tighter, waiting for the explosion of violence. But it did not come. Instead, the creature lowered its head slightly, its fiery gaze locked upon the human's calm face. Gasps filled the chamber. The impossible was happening before their very eyes. The council leader slammed his staff against the floor in rage. "This is madness. It is trickery. Do not be fooled. It is waiting for the right moment to tear him apart. Guards, pull him back." The order was sharp, but the guards hesitated. Their hands trembled, for they had seen the beast tear through steel, yet it stood unmoving before the human. They did not know whether to obey or to freeze where they stood. Human's voice rose again, louder now, carrying through the chamber with a force that shook even the doubters. "You call me a fool for showing trust. But what greater fool is there than one who kills without seeking truth? If you strike this beast down now, you are no counsel of wisdom. You are executioners blinded by fear." His words cut through the hall. They stung, for even the most hardened alien lords could not deny the power of his defiance. His courage alone forced them to question the certainty they had clung to. The beast shifted its weight, and for the first time, The sound that escaped its throat was not a growl. It was softer, low, a sound almost like a rumble of curiosity. Its chains loosened slightly as it stopped straining. Its eyes did not shine with rage but with something unspoken. The chamber fell still. Thousands of voices hushed as one. Their fear collided with wonder, and wonder is always more dangerous than anger. The council leader's fury burned brighter. His silver skin shimmered with heat. His voice thundered, "This ends now. We will not be swayed by human weakness. Guards, remove him, or you will all be punished." But before the guards could move, the human took another step closer. His hand lifted slightly, not in threat but in calm offering. His voice dropped softer, yet it carried more power than any shout. "If you wish to call me weak, then so be it. But understand this. Strength is not in killing what we fear. Strength is in facing it without hate." The words settled into the chamber like heavy stones dropped into water. Their ripples spread across the crowd. Some lowered their eyes, some clenched their fists, but none could dismiss him now. The beast's eyes flickered, its breath slower, and for the briefest moment it leaned forward against its chains. The crowd gasped, thinking it would strike, but instead it simply drew closer to the human's steady presence. The council chamber had seen centuries of trials, of executions, of sacrifices offered to fear, but in that moment it witnessed something it had never seen before. One small human defying an empire of voices, standing alone between judgment and mercy. His defiance was not a shout of arrogance, but the steady flame of belief. And though the chamber roared again with fury and disbelief, a crack had formed in the certainty of their judgment. A small crack, but enough for light to slip through. Gentle hands. The chamber had turned into a storm of voices once more, the cries of rage mixing with gasps of disbelief. The alien lords shouted for the human to step back, their voices cracking with fear that he was about to unleash death upon them all. The guards raised their weapons, their hands trembling as they pointed sharp spears toward both the human and the beast. Yet the human did not falter. His body was small, his skin fragile compared to the scaled and armored beings around him. But in that moment he seemed to carry more weight than the towering council itself. His every movement was slow, deliberate, heavy with meaning. The beast towered before him, its breath washing over him like waves of fire, its eyes glowing with the fury of stars. The chains rattled with every shift of its massive body. Each sound was enough to make the bravest alien warriors flinch, yet the human's face held no hatred, no blade, no shield. Instead, he lowered his body, bending his knees until he was kneeling on the cold marble floor. It was an act so simple, yet so unthinkable in that chamber. For to kneel before the beast was to place one's life in its claws. It was to give away all defenses. All who watched believed they were witnessing the last seconds of his life. The alien crowd whispered in 1,000 tongues, their fear rising. Higher, some shouted that this was trickery. Others prayed to their gods for the human's swift death. The council leader gripped his staff tightly, his silver eyes burning with rage. He slammed the staff against the floor and shouted, "Foolish human! What madness drives you to kneel before a demon? It will tear you apart and feast upon your bones." But the human did not look at the leader. His gaze was fixed only on the beast, and his voice, calm and steady, filled the silence between growls. "You are chained, but I do not see chains holding a monster. I see chains holding a wounded being. I do not come with fire or steel. I come with only my hands," he said. His words were quiet, but carried into every corner of the chamber. His hands moved slowly to his pack, and from it he drew a piece of food, nothing more than a small ration of bread he had carried. It was insignificant compared to the grandeur of the council hall, but in that moment it became a symbol greater than any weapon. He held it out carefully, his hands open, his palms steady. The beast growled deeply, its head lowering toward the offering. The sound was so fierce that the marble floor itself seemed to tremble. Every alien flinched. Some raised their weapons, ready to strike the beast down the moment it lunged. But then something strange happened. Instead of snapping forward with its jaws, instead of tearing the human apart, the beast's nostrils flared. Its burning eyes flickered, not with rage but with something softer. It leaned closer, its massive head lowering until its hot breath rolled across the human's skin. The crowd gasped in horror, certain they were about to watch him die. But the human remained still. His hands did not shake, his eyes did not close. He spoke again, his words calm and filled with a steady strength. "I do not fear you. I do not see you as a curse. I see you as life, hungry, tired, and chained. If you will take this food, then take it not as from an enemy, but from a friend." His voice was like water on fire, soft yet unyielding. The beast's head lowered further, its teeth flashing as it opened its jaws. The chamber filled with screams as the crowd braced for blood, but instead of tearing flesh, the beast's jaws closed around the bread, and with surprising gentleness it pulled the food from the human's hand. The silence that followed was heavier than any roar. The alien counselors froze, their eyes wide in disbelief. The guards stood paralyzed, their weapons trembling in the air. The beast chewed slowly, its glowing eyes never leaving the human's face. Its growls had softened into low rumbles, not of rage but of something closer to contentment. The human lifted his other hand slowly, so carefully that every heartbeat in the chamber seemed to hold still. His fingers reached forward until they brushed against the beast's scales. The crowd gasped again, but no violence came. Instead, the beast leaned into the touch, a deep rumble vibrating through its chest. The council leader's face twisted with fury. His voice thundered through the chamber. "No, this is deception. It is tricking you. It will strike when you lower your guard. Kill it now, before it can rise against us." His words cracked like lightning, but they no longer carried the same power, for in that hall all had seen what had just occurred. They had seen the impossible. A beast feared across the stars, lowering itself to a human's gentle hands. The whispers spread quickly. Aliens spoke in hushed awe. Some asked how such a thing was possible. Others trembled, unable to believe their own eyes. For centuries, the beast had been nothing but terror. But in a single moment, the human had touched it without fear. The guards lowered their weapons slightly, uncertain, their minds torn between the orders of their leader and the miracle before them. The beast did not move to strike. It did not roar or thrash. It remained still, its head resting lightly against the human's hand. The human's voice rose once. More, quiet but firm. "You see, it is not a demon. It is not a shadow born of evil. It is a being, a life, as we are. It is hungry, it is hurt, and it is chained. Would you kill something without even asking if it deserves to die? Would you call yourself wise if you cannot see beyond your fear?" His words rippled across the chamber like waves, striking against the walls of tradition and fear. Some aliens shook their heads, refusing to believe, but others lowered their eyes, doubt creeping into hearts where none had existed before. The beast closed its eyes briefly, leaning further into the human's touch, its body that had once strained violently. Against the chains now relaxed, its muscles loosened, its growls faded into silence. It seemed almost at peace for the first time. The alien counselors stared, unable to comprehend the transformation. The council leader struck his staff against the ground again and again, desperate to shatter the moment. But the spell had already been cast. The chamber that had once been filled with rage was now filled with silence. The human knelt calmly, his gentle hands upon the creature. The beast, feared across the stars, lowered itself beside him. The council, the guards, and the gathered crowd could do nothing but watch, for in that moment the truth was undeniable. Kindness had broken chains that fear and hatred could not. The breaking of chains. The council chamber had never been so silent. A hall that had echoed for centuries with commands, debates, and judgment now seemed to tremble under the weight of what it had just witnessed. The beast, once feared as the scourge of stars, no longer thrashed against its chains. Its massive body that had shaken fortresses and shattered fleets now leaned quietly into the touch of a single human. The sound of its deep rumble, low and almost content, filled the air like the heartbeat of some ancient world. The aliens sat, frozen, their disbelief so heavy that many could not even blink. They had seen death in the beast's eyes for as long as they had known of its existence, but now they saw something they had never imagined. Peace. The human's hands moved gently over the creature's scaled head, his voice calm and low, meant only for the beast, but somehow echoing through the chamber. You are not a monster. You are not the shadow they call you. You are life, as I am life, and life does not deserve chains born of fear. His words carried no power of law, no decree of command, yet they held a strength the council could not ignore. For every being in the hall could see the truth with their own eyes. The beast, feared across the stars, was not devouring him. It was not tearing at his flesh. It was resting against him. The council leader's face twisted in fury. His silver skin shone with the light of anger. His voice thundered through the chamber. Enough. We will not be fooled by a beast's games. Guards, strike it down. Strike him down as well if you must. This is no miracle. This is deception. He slammed his staff against the marble floor, the sound cracking like thunder. The guards looked at each other, their hands tight on their weapons, yet none moved forward. Their hearts battled between obedience and the truth of what they had seen, for how could they raise their blades against a creature that now sat in peace? Beside the human, the beast stirred then, lifting its head as if understanding the command that had been spoken against it. The chains rattled, heavy iron links that had bound its body for years. The sound struck the air like a warning. The guards stiffened, ready to defend themselves, but the human lifted his hand, calm and steady, his voice soft yet filled with authority. "Be still," he whispered, and astonishingly the beast obeyed. It lowered its head again, its burning eyes fixed not on the guards, not on the council leader, but on the human kneeling before it. The chamber gasped again, for they had never seen the creature respond to anything but rage. The human rose slowly, his hand brushing over the chains that dug deep into the beast's flesh. He felt the heat of its skin, the scars left by years of captivity. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, his voice calm as he spoke. These chains do not protect you. They do not protect the galaxy. They only spread fear. Fear does not heal. Fear only destroys. If you wish to call yourselves wise, then wisdom begins here with mercy, not with shackles. His words rang across the chamber like a challenge. The alien lords shifted uneasily, some snarling in anger, others silent with doubt. You see, even it has chosen. Not death, not violence, but trust. His words were quiet, yet they carried louder than the leader's thunder. The chamber trembled with the weight of the moment. The chaos of voices, the clash of beliefs, all seemed to hang suspended. For the council itself stood at a crossroads, one path leading to blood, the other to something far more uncertain but far more powerful. And as the silence deepened, the hall that had once ruled only through fear now faced its greatest trial, not of law or judgment but of its very soul, the choice of the stars. The council chamber, once filled with endless noise, now sat in silence that weighed heavier than stone. The beast stood unchained, its massive body lowered beside the human, not as a predator but as a guardian. Its eyes glowed not with madness but with a steady fire, a fire that no longer burned with hate but with loyalty. Across the chamber, thousands of aliens stared, their voices stilled, their certainty broken. For what they had witnessed could not be erased. A creature that had been called a demon for centuries had chosen peace over blood, and it had chosen to stand by a human. The council leader trembled with fury. His staff still crackled with energy, but the strength in his voice no longer carried the same unshakable command. He shouted into the silence, "Do not be deceived. This is no miracle, it is manipulation. You think it has chosen mercy, but you are blind. It will turn on us the moment we lower our guard. I will not let the galaxy fall to the weakness of human compassion." His words struck hard, but they rang hollow against the weight of what all had seen. For doubt had spread, and once doubt enters the heart, fear alone cannot rule it. One by one, voices began to rise from the seats of the council, some weak and trembling, others filled with new conviction. A tall insectoid counselor spoke first, her voice sharp but uncertain. "If it wished for death, the human would be gone already, yet he lives. Should we ignore what is before our eyes?" Another followed, his scaled face furrowed in thought. "For centuries we have called it a monster. But what if we were wrong? What if it was never the beast that hunted us, but our fear that hunted it?" Their words rippled through the chamber, stirring whispers that grew louder with each passing moment. The council leader slammed his staff down again, sparks flying. As he roared, "You dare question the order of the council, you dare break the law of the stars." But even as he shouted, he could see the change in the faces around him. He could see doubt replacing rage and wonder softening hatred, for the image before them was undeniable. The beast leaned closer to the human, its body forming a shield as though it would protect him against all the armies of the stars. That single act spoke louder than any command. The human rose slowly to his feet, his hand never leaving the creature's side. His voice carried through the silence, not shouted, but strong and steady. "You fear what you do not understand, but what you saw with your own eyes cannot be denied. Chains could not tame it. Blades could not defeat it. Armies could not break it. Yet a gentle hand calmed it. What does that tell you? It tells you that your fear was never its chains. It was your blindness. You call yourselves guardians of the stars. But today, the stars themselves are watching, and they will remember whether you chose fear or hope." The chamber shivered with his words. Some counselors lowered their eyes in shame. Others looked to each other in confusion. For the humans, defiance had turned into something more. It had become a mirror, forcing every being to see not the beast's reflection, but their own. The weight of centuries of fear pressed upon them, and for the first time, cracks began to show in the wall of tradition. Then, suddenly, a guard near the front broke the silence. His hands shook as he dropped his weapon, letting it fall to the marble floor with a loud clang. "I will not strike," he said softly. His voice carried, and others followed. One by one, guards lowered their weapons, stepping back, refusing to raise their blades against what they now believed might not be a monster at all. The chamber stirred with gasps, for when soldiers disobey fear, the foundation of power begins to crumble. The council leader's fury grew desperate. His voice cracked with rage. "Traitors, all of you, you will doom us all." He raised his staff, energy blazing brighter than before. The crackle of lightning filled the chamber. His intent was clear. He would strike the beast himself if no one else had the will. The crowd froze, holding their breath. But as he raised his weapon high, the beast moved. It rose in a single, fluid motion, its chains gone, its body free, its glowing eyes blazed brighter than fire, and yet it did not attack. Instead, it stepped in front of the human, its massive frame forming a wall of living strength, and when the council leader unleashed his strike, the beast did not retaliate with claws or teeth. It absorbed the blow, the energy searing its scales, burning deep. Yet it did not falter. It stood unyielding. Its body trembled under the force of the attack, but it did not move aside. For the first time in its long life, the beast had chosen to protect rather than destroy. The chamber gasped. In shock, the energy faded. The leader staggered back, disbelief breaking his fury, for no one, not even he, could deny what they had seen. The beast had shielded the human at the cost of its own pain. The silence that followed was not empty. It was filled with awe, with fear, with wonder, with the breaking of centuries of certainty. The human placed his hand gently against the beast's scorched scales, his voice low but filled with strength. "This is loyalty. This is trust. This is proof. Do you still call it a monster, or will you finally see that life is greater than fear?" His words carried like thunder, though spoken softly, and this time no one laughed. No one mocked, no one shouted. They simply listened, for they could not deny the truth in front of them. The council leader's staff fell silent, its glow fading, his face twisted with rage, but his power was gone, his voice cracked, no longer. Thunder, but a whisper against the tide. "You will regret this," he hissed. But no one answered, for the chamber no longer looked to him. Their eyes were fixed upon the human and the beast. And so the vote was called, not by the leader, but by the whispers that had grown into a tide. One by one, voices declared their choice. Some still clung to fear, but many chose hope. And when the final voice spoke, the chamber had decided. The beast would not be sacrificed. It would live, not as a monster in chains, but as proof that even the darkest shadow could be touched by light. The human stood beside the creature, his hand still resting upon its scales. As the council's judgment was declared, he looked up, his voice calm. "Remember this day, for it is not the beast that was judged, but all of you, and you chose. Not fear, but mercy. That choice will be remembered by the stars themselves." His words settled into every heart, and they knew they would never forget them. The chamber doors opened and the human walked forward, the beast following at his side. Its massive steps shook the marble floor, but now those steps carried no terror. They carried awe. The gathered crowd parted before them, not in fear, but in respect, for they had seen the impossible, and it had changed them. The council, the guards, the citizens, all watched in silence as the human and the beast left the hall together, side by side, and beyond the chamber. Beyond the city, beyond the world itself, whispers spread across the stars, whispers of a single truth, that humanity, fragile and short-lived, carried a power that no empire could command, the power of gentle hands that could tame even the wildest. Of monsters, the choice had been made, and from that day onward the stars themselves would never be the same.
Thank you for joining Eternal Human Spirit, where humanity always rises again.